Hello, just looking for an unbiased judgment on our situation. My partner was given an ultimatum to either choose his family or me by his parents. I wanted him to choose what's best for himself and not think about my feelings, as I hate to see him lose his family. He chose me, but I feel so guilty as I know he loves his family a lot. They said they couldn't trust him anymore if he chose to be with me, and his mom won't talk to him anymore. I feel incredibly guilty because I still want him to have a good relationship with his parents. Even if it excludes me forever, I know I'm mostly at fault here. Situation below. How would you handle this? FYI, his family is upper class, I think, and my family is lower class. Also, in my culture, it's normal for the children to potentially help their parents out, sometimes once they're old. I'm willing to give them money, not an amount that would affect our quality of life. Once they're old, if they ever need it. My partner and I were supposed to get married this year in the fall of 2024 and got engaged last fall of 2023. Our wedding is now postponed. Our relationship of 4 years has always been wonderful and healthy, and we have lived together for around 2 years. However, at the end of October last year, my father injured himself, so I visited him around once a week just to help out. Currently, I still am helping him, but less frequently. This involved things like going out to pay his bills on the bank machines. I never saw the statement balances, as he would write down the amounts for me to pay with his money. I knew he had financial issues most of my adult life, but I didn't know the extent of it. I haven't lived with my parents since I moved out for university. It's been 8 years. So over a couple of months of going down to see him, I got curious and a little worried from the amount of bills he had me pay for him. I asked him about his financial situation, and he revealed to me the debt he and my mother both have. It was around $200,000 for my dad and $100,000 for my mom, which was a shock. My parents acquired this debt over a long period of time. They are immigrants, and my father lost his job due to a disability caused by a medical injury accident. So they snowballed into debt and were living off credit, but my mom was still working. During the time I found out, my fiancé was out of the country, so I had a lot of time to research ways to help them. I was hyper-focused on finding ways to help them out as they're getting old. I found good options, debt management plan, and a consumer proposal for them both, and started making calls. I had a good idea of how to get them out of this mess and was confident it would work out. They can't speak English well, which is why I had to be there to help them out with these things. Anyways, when my fiancé came back, I didn't tell him about my parents' situation right away, because I didn't think it would be a problem that would affect our relationship. So, a few days after he came back, I made a post on Reddit asking for advice if one option or the other would be best for my parents, based on their financial situation. This was after I had helped them speak with a debt management professional. I was just looking for second opinions. And then, maybe 2 days later, my fiancé had to go over to his parents' house for a talk. Apparently, his sister saw my post because she was secretly following my old Reddit account and told their parents, whom then called him over. Another reason was because their grandfather was ill, and they had to do paperwork to take my fiancé's name out of his will because of my parents' financial situation. They were all mad that I hadn't told him right away. I knew about their debt problem for a little over a week and said they couldn't trust me anymore, which is reasonable thinking, I guess. My fiancé told me the next day what happened and was, of course, upset. I told him why I didn't tell him right away, and he still trusts me, thankfully. In my POV, I didn't think of it as a big problem, as my sister and I will be capable of helping our parents, if needed, without it impacting our personal lives. But in his parents' POV, my family's financial situation does have a big impact on my fiancé's life and their life, and I should have shared my parents' debt issues right away. I have a good career path, and so will my sister, so I never thought about guilting him into giving my parents money if they ever needed help. I have also shared all my financial details with my fiancé, and he knows what I have in my accounts. So it's not like I'm trying to hide my financial situation. When it comes to sharing my parents' financial status, I just didn't know if that was right or wrong since it's their personal info. Perhaps I was just too confident everything would work out and didn't think about how it could potentially impact our lives. I was naive, thinking that my parents' problems were private to them and not an issue that concerned us. I had no ill intention of wanting to use my future husband's money for my parents' debt. My parents have never asked for my help in their debt problems, and it was me who wanted to intervene. I know they would never ruin our lives with their problems and would rather die. But I can see why my fiancé would think of them potentially harassing us for money, as he doesn't know them very well. I just wanted to find them a solution that they could deal with on their own. And they also have a good amount of equity they could always fall back on. So I wasn't worried about them becoming homeless. I got my father into a debt management plan, which they can manage on their own, only a day after his whole family had a meeting about why I can't be trusted anymore. I was planning on telling my fiancé about what my parents' financial situation is like now and why they can't treat us to dinner anymore, etc. But didn't want to until I had a solid plan for them and knew all the details. And I knew it wouldn't take long as I did a lot of research and was about to secure a contract for them. I did so in under 2 weeks, but I can see why I should have told him right away. I didn't get the chance to tell him on my own, but I know his family will never believe me. I have never asked my partner for money before, and we mostly split everything 50-50. I had no ill intent, and I guess I just didn't see this as big of a problem as his family does. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. It's a class thing. The debt isn't great, obviously, but it is the business of you and your family. The only reason anyone else should be involved is by your family's choice. They clearly think ill of people of lower classes and have distrust due to this. You are doing a good thing. Your partner accepts that, so nobody else's opinion should matter. If they chose you, there's no need for you to feel bad. You've essentially been a saint here, and you're being demonized for it. Maybe give the marriage a little while until your partner is more familiar with your family. But other than that, you've done basically everything right. Comment 2. It tells 2 things. 1. Your in-laws are money over love type, the kind that have no time for the children, but have money to throw on the table. Your husband could be in need of real affection. They effectively found a way to take out his part of inheritance with you as pretext. 2. If they don't accept your help, your parents, they should not expect being helped either. Maybe it was the reasoning all along, meaning that their help is one way and is supposed to be paid in a toxic and silent way. I came to the idea that your husband doesn't take distance from his family only for you, so you can tune down the guilt. Now for the update. Thanks for all the comments from last time. So, a lot has happened since then. Right after the last update, my partner's sister, who's been a thorn in my side since day one, decided to stir the pot even more. She went around telling everyone in their family that I was planning to take advantage of my partner financially. It was a lie, but it spread like wildfire. My partner, bless him, stood by me, but the tension was unbearable. Then, out of nowhere, my partner's grandfather passed away. It was a huge blow to the family, and in the midst of their grief, the will was read. Despite the earlier talk of removing my partner from it, he was still included. But here's where it got messy. His grandfather left a significant portion of his estate to my partner, which suddenly made everyone's attitude towards me even worse. They thought I'd somehow influenced the old man or that I'd now sink my claws into this inheritance. My partner was torn. He wanted to respect his grandfather's wishes, but the pressure from his family was intense. They wanted him to renounce his inheritance to prove he wasn't under my influence. It was an impossible situation. He was looking at me, then at them, and I could see him crumbling under the weight of it all. In a move that shocked everyone, he decided to put the inheritance into a trust. It was a bold move, one that would either save our relationship or end it. He said the money would be there for our future, for our kids' education, or for any emergencies, but not for everyday use. His family was stunned. They couldn't argue with that, but they still looked at me like I was the villain in their perfect family drama. Now, while all this was going on, my parents were struggling with their debt management plan. They were doing their best, but it was clear they needed more help. I was juggling my job, my relationship, and my parents' financial mess. I was at my wit's end. Then the news dropped. My partner's sister, the one who'd been making my life hell, was caught in her own scandal. Turns out she'd been embezzling money from the family business. It was a huge deal, and suddenly, all the suspicion and resentment that had been directed at me shifted to her. The family was in shock. They had been so focused on me being the problem that they hadn't seen the real issue right under their noses. My partner felt terrible. He'd been defending me against his family's accusations, while his sister was the one betraying their trust. He apologized to me even though I told him he had nothing to be sorry for. It was a mess, but it also cleared the air. His family started to see that I wasn't the enemy. I was just trying to do right by my own family without causing harm to anyone else. In the aftermath, my partner and I sat down and had a long talk. We decided to move forward with our wedding plans, but we'd keep it simple. No big fancy event that his family could hold over us. Just something small and meaningful for the two of us. And as for my parents, I helped them renegotiate their debt management plan. It's going to be a long road, but they're committed to getting back on track. My partner even offered to help them with some financial advice, now that the air was clear between us and his family. So, that's where we are now. It's been pretty up and down, but we're getting through it. My partner chose me, and I proved that I was in it for the right reasons. Thanks for reading. My girlfriend accuses me of making her look dumb at golf. So I show her what a hole-in-one really looks like by winning the club championship and making her dad eat his words. So I, 31-year-old male, and my girlfriend, 26-year-old female, just got into a big fight over golf. How do I convince her that I wasn't trying to be malicious? Background. So I, 31-year-old male, have recently started dating a girl, 26-year-old female, that I like a lot, like, say, 4 months. Both of us are really close to our families and spend a lot of time with them. It was basically impossible for our families not to meet pretty early. For example, I watch my niece 2 days a week, my mom does the other days, and she helps out on my days. Our families are pretty similar standard, boring, suburban, Midwestern families, and everyone gets along. So, on to the story. My girlfriend and her dad invited my dad and me to go golfing with them. It's been crazy nice where I live, and courses are open right now and they usually are closed for the winter. They wanted to take advantage of the good weather. They knew we both played golf, and the two of them were both very into golf. You could see her high school and college trophies showing around their parents' house. It's really sweet. Golf is pretty much their main hobby. So here's some more info about me. I do not look like I golf at all. I am covered in tattoos, I have long hair, and my style is more punk than country club. I am also really good at golf. I personally enjoy the activities surrounding golf more than actually playing golf itself. I like drinking a few beers and walking the course with friends more than practicing golf. I have done enough practice for 10 lifetimes. I promise you. My grandpa on my dad's side started a private golf club in the 50s. My grandpa on my mom's side was a golf coach. My dad played at a top university and is currently a top 50 senior golfer in the world. I have spent more time on a golf course than should be accepted by society. Literally, my daycare growing up during the summer was just to drop me off at the club until my dad was done with work. So, about 9 hours a day, 36 holes 7 days a week all summer. By the time high school came around, it felt more like torture than a hobby or leisure activity. So I stopped playing, but once you learn something so thoroughly and so young, it doesn't go away. Anyway, I've told my girlfriend my thoughts on golf before, and that I mostly like the exercise, being outside and cold beverages with friends. But I would still love to go with her anytime. I think this must have translated into I'm not very good at golf for her or something. Even before the first hole was over, I could tell something was up. My girlfriend wasn't ignoring me, but definitely more distant. I just thought maybe she likes to focus more on the golf than the social aspects during a round, and that's fine. Going into this, I saw today as an opportunity to bond with her dad, and not really about us, if that makes sense. So I just gave her space and did my best to get to know the guy and for us to get to know each other better. I think we had a pretty great round. Well, the distance continued until we got to my house and she exploded at me. We haven't really had a fight before, and she is not quick to anger. She was really mad and saying things like, "Why would I lie to her about something so dumb?" And "You were trying to make me look stupid and make her family look bad," etc., etc. I was flabbergasted. I mean, first fights are interesting to navigate, but this was something else. She eventually left as she needed to cool off, but she's been distant and curt with me since. That was Sunday. During our fight, I was just so caught off guard I didn't really say much, which I don't think helped. We've been kind of just ignoring the situation, which is definitely not working at all. I really like her and want to move past this. Other than this fight, she's been so sweet, kind, and loving. She's the best. I'm going to talk to her later tonight about this, but I'm not really sure what to say. How do I convince her that I wasn't hiding my golf ability to be malicious or mean? I just don't like golf. It just sounds so ridiculous and dumb reading over this to me, but I don't want to mess this up. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. If you had mentioned a quarter as much to your girlfriend as you wrote in your post, you wouldn't be in this position. How could none of your or your family's relationships with golf not have come up once with a girl who has golf trophies all over her house? That's insane. How embarrassing for her to be in the dark about that in front of her family. If this isn't a shit post, tell her what you told us and apologize for being clueless. ETI. It's also insane that she said you were trying to make her family look bad. Comment 2. So, my boyfriend and I golf, and we found this really interesting. Our guess is her ego is hurt. She thought she was going to beat you soundly and maybe give you a few tips along the way. She had probably prepared her father for your bad play, but your muscle memory kicked in. Edit. Read your comments and your impressive handicap. I am sure she was shocked. I would just have an honest conversation with her about how it's a difficult topic for you. You weren't trying to lie to her. It was more about avoidance on your part. Now, for the update. Thanks for sticking around for the update. Things went from bad to worse after that fight. I tried to talk to her, explain that I wasn't trying to show her up or make her feel bad, but she wouldn't have it. She said it was about trust, that I'd kept a part of myself hidden, and she didn't know what else I might be hiding. It felt like a punch to the gut. I thought we were past it, but I guess not. Then her dad got involved. He called me up, said he wanted to meet for coffee. I thought maybe he'd help smooth things over, but I was wrong. He accused me of disrespecting his daughter, of making a fool out of him on the golf course. He said I'd made him question my character. I'd tried to defend myself, but he wasn't listening. He told me if I cared about his daughter, I'd step back and let her be. I was reeling. I didn't know what to do. I talked to my dad about it, and he was furious. Said her dad had no right to say those things, that I was a good man. But he also said maybe this was a sign that if she couldn't trust me over something like golf, what would happen when real problems came up? I didn't want to believe it, but part of me knew he was right. I decided to give her space, to let her come to me if she wanted to talk. Days turned into weeks, and the silence between us grew heavier. Then, out of nowhere, she showed up at my door. She was crying, said she'd overreacted, that she missed me. I wanted to be angry, to tell her how much she'd hurt me, but I couldn't. I just held her, told her it was okay. We tried to move past it, but things were different. Her family was cold to me, and my friend said she'd shown her true colors, that I should be careful. But I didn't want to listen. I loved her, and I thought we could work through anything. But then, the real news dropped. She was pregnant. We were both shocked, scared, but also a little excited. We started talking about the future, about being a family. It felt like maybe this was what we needed, something to bring us together. But the doubts crept in. Her dad still didn't trust me, and now he was talking about being a part of his grandchild's life, about making sure I did right by his daughter. My friends were wary, said this was a big commitment, and I needed to be sure. I was torn. I wanted to be there for her, for our child, but I also felt trapped, like I was being pushed into a life I wasn't sure about because of one mistake. And the worst part was, I couldn't shake the feeling that maybe her dad was right, that maybe I wasn't good enough. So here I am trying to be happy about being a dad, but also feeling like I'm in over my head. I've accepted the situation, but deep down, I'm terrified. I don't know if I'm ready for this, but I'm going to try. For her, for our baby. I just hope I'm making the right choice. Thanks for reading. My husband gave me a cheap card for Mother's Day while having an affair. So I bought myself the necklace. He never did and showed him I don't need his love to feel valued. My husband and I have been together for 4 years and have a soon-to-be 1-year-old. For his first Father's Day, I was 3 months postpartum, baby glued to me at all times, and very much in survival mode. Yet I planned ahead and custom-made him 3 hardcover books with him and our son as the main characters, along with a full-page letter about how much we love him and what a great dad he is on every one of the books. I also got him some way overpriced artisanal beer and a book of dad jokes. He cried, said it was fantastic and that he's under pressure to do something equally as great for my first Mother's Day, which in my country of origin is tomorrow. I work fully from home and he works hybrid. Usually he always works from home on Fridays, and for 3 days a week, we have a nanny for 3 hours a day, so we can actually get some work done in between naps. This morning, before he left for work, he told me to ask her to come in tomorrow because otherwise he'll have no time to get me something for Mother's Day. That's right. He left it until the day of. I got upset, but said nothing, and he assumed I was upset about him not working from home. After I gave birth, I told him I wanted a necklace with the moon. My son was born under for a push present. He didn't get it, but I didn't mind because when we got home from the hospital, there were flowers, balloons, a cake with a 0 candle, all my favorite snacks, a teddy, and a mug that said, "World's Best Mom." About a month ago, I casually mentioned the necklace again, but it seems it fell on deaf ears. It's not a money issue, and I'm not a materialistic person. It's a $40 necklace off Etsy, you guys. I'm tempted to buy it for myself after Mother's Day because I want it and because I feel like being a little petty. He always says he can't help it if I'm a much better gift giver than him, that he can't compete. But the thing is, when he tries, he's an excellent gift giver too. I once told him that my grandfather, whom I adored, used to have a cuckoo clock that broke, and my biggest regret was not buying him a new one before he died. That Christmas, he gave me the most beautiful and intricate cuckoo clock from Germany and said it could be our first family heirloom. Oftentimes, like for our 3-year anniversary, which was 1 week after the birth of our son, he gave me nothing and said he had no time. There was another birthday years ago where they got me a cookbook on cakes and a riveter. For those that don't know, a riveter is a tool, and I don't know what it's actually used for. The logic behind this was that I like Rosie the Riveter. He's a clever man, so him going from Rosie to an actual tool is just baffling. It's just making me feel unloved and unimportant when he doesn't put any thought into things like this. Sorry, I just needed to rant a little. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. He might be struggling with gift giving, as not everyone is a natural at it. My suggestion is, on birthdays, Christmas, and Mother's Day, give him a list indicating the items you would like to have and where he can get them. Tell him to choose one of those items to gift to you. By doing this, you might help him understand what you like so that he can start giving you better gifts in the future in a more natural way. You should also sit down with him and explain that you're feeling neglected because you put a lot of effort into preparing gifts for him, but he isn't gifting you what you want, and he only buys his gifts at the last minute. Clearly tell him that you would appreciate it if he put the same effort into preparing your gifts as you put into preparing his. Comment 2. God, I feel this sometimes. One Christmas, my husband bought me anti-aging retinol cream and other face care products. He never mentioned wanting any of those things, and actually I was like, does he think I look old? What the heck is this? LMFAO. Turns out, he had asked our daughter for ideas, and she's super into skincare. Makes sense. He's not the greatest gift giver. I have had 8 babies, and I've never gotten any sort of push present. I honestly don't care because I grew up in poverty, so I was never into giving or receiving gifts. But he makes up for it in other areas of life. Now, for Christmas or any gifting occasion, we set a mutual budget and we order for ourselves and wrap it. Done. Now, for the update, thanks for sticking around. So much has happened since I last posted, and I've got to get this off my chest. The day after I last wrote, Mother's Day, was a disaster. I woke up to an empty house. My husband had taken our son out early. I thought, okay, maybe he's pulling off a last-minute surprise. Hours passed, and they finally came back, but with nothing more than a grocery store bouquet and a generic card. It stung, especially after all the effort I put into his Father's Day. But here's where things took a turn. The next day, I found a receipt from a jewelry store, not for the moon necklace, but for a much more expensive piece. I was confused, but thought maybe he was planning a belated surprise. That evening, he came home late, smelling like perfume that wasn't mine. My heart sank. I confronted him, and after some dodging, he admitted he'd been seeing someone from his office. The jewelry was for her. I was devastated, betrayed. The man who cried over custom books and dad jokes had been lying to me, to us. I couldn't believe it. The signs were there, but I had trusted him, believed in us. I felt like a fool. The following days were a blur of arguments, tears, and tough decisions. I had to think about our son, our future. I couldn't just pack up and leave. We had built a life together. But how could I stay with someone who had shattered my trust? In the midst of this chaos, I remembered the cuckoo clock, the heirloom he gave me. It was a symbol of our family, of promises made. I couldn't look at it without feeling a mix of anger and sorrow. I took it down and packed it away. I couldn't have it mocking me with its chirps. I needed support, so I called my best friend. She was shocked, having known us as the perfect couple. She came over, helped me with the baby, and listened as I poured out my heart. She reminded me of my strength, of how I'd managed work and motherhood, and how I'd survived this too. Work became my refuge, a place to focus my energy and keep my mind off the mess at home. I threw myself into projects, stayed up late, and met deadlines. It was exhausting, but it helped. Then one evening, my husband sat me down. He was remorseful, said he'd ended things with the other woman, that he wanted to make things right. He offered to go to counseling, to do whatever it took. I was torn. Part of me wanted to believe him, to fix our family. But another part was scared of being hurt again. I agreed to counseling, but with conditions. We'd sleep in separate rooms, and I'd need time to see real change. It wasn't going to be easy, but for our son's sake, I had to try. The counseling sessions were tough. We dug into issues we'd never faced before. I learned about his insecurities, how he felt overshadowed by my capabilities, both at work and as a parent. It wasn't an excuse for his betrayal, but it was a start to understanding the why. As we worked through our problems, I also took time for myself. I bought the moon necklace. It was a small act of self-care, a reminder that I deserved to be treated well, even if it meant doing it myself. The weeks were interesting, to say the least, of emotions. Some days I felt hopeful. Others I was ready to walk away. But slowly we started to rebuild. He became more involved at home, took over bedtime routines, and even surprised me with a thoughtful gift, a first edition of my favorite book. It wasn't all smooth sailing. There were setbacks, moments of doubt, but we kept at it. Our son's laughter reminded us of what was at stake. Now, as I write this, I'm cautiously optimistic. We're not back to where we were, and maybe we never will be. But we're finding a new normal, a different kind of happiness. It's not the life I thought we'd have, but it's ours, and I'm fighting for it. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.